Well, greetings from San Diego to all my friends at Hall Wesleyan Church. I've driven on the old Highway 81 and then on Interstate 35 many times and seen that sign pointing to where Hall Wesleyan Church is. I've been there many times, have fond memories of it. When the videographer came to my house to make this video, he chose this location and he didn't know how significant it was. He said, stand right here. Well, I'm right by this picture of Morgan Chapel Wesleyan Church. Many of you would know that church. This is a painting done by the granddaughter of E.A. Coates. Now, some of you will know who E.A. Coates is, one of the prominent pastors in the Kansas district many years ago. But she painted this for me many years ago. It was a story that I often heard told that the reason Morgan Chapel doesn't exist, and that in contrast to that Hall Wesleyan Church exists, is because a lot of the farm boys from our church left, as we did, and numbers of them in the Hall Church stayed around. And you have a church there, and we don't have one here anymore. Hall Wesleyan has always been a strong church. Now you're at an interesting crossroads, a crossroads where you're looking at the future, evaluating all kinds of things in ministry. I want to applaud what you're doing. That's a courageous act. That is not an easy act to do. We're doing it here at San Diego at Skyline Wesleyan Church, constantly having to reevaluate. We brought in a guest speaker only 2 weeks ago, one who authored a book called the American Church in Crisis, because the American church is in crisis. It is a tragedy indeed what we're facing in America, but only 17% of Americans attend church each weekend. Not 47% like George Barna and George Gallup used to say. It's 17% by the best research that we have today. And in America, 51 million people attend church, but that's the same number that attended back in 1996. We have not changed the number in all these years, from 1990 rather, from 1990 until now. That's 19 years. It's remained a constant at 51 million. And in that same length of time, in excess of 51 million, the population has increased. So we haven't increased, though the population has increased substantially in that time. So you're on an exercise to try to ascertain exactly what do we do to stay relevant. The journey you're on is a difficult one. It's not an easy one. We struggle with it here. We struggle with it a great deal in our staff meetings and our church board meetings and what we call our core leadership meetings. We're wrestling with exactly what does it mean to be relevant and to stay viable. We could do things the same way and still have a pretty decent ministry, but it would lose its viability. It would lose its cutting edge. And so we're having to make steps as a church, and every church is having to do the same thing across America, where we put aside our personal preferences. A lot of things that I really like, for example, we're having to put those aside so we somehow can loop in the next generation to the gospel of Jesus Christ. It means that our preferences become very less important than what it takes to reach those who do not yet know Christ. So I applaud what you're doing. Ministry, even young pastors have told me. I was in Grand Rapids a few days ago in Michigan, and a young pastor says, pastoring has gotten so much harder in the last 6 years. And that was coming from a young pastor. And he's right. Something has happened substantially. I'm going to be speaking on this topic tomorrow in Dallas, as a matter of fact. So we're at a great change point taking place. The change point taking place right now is as big and as important as the change that took place in the Protestant Reformation in 1517. And this is probably the biggest change in terms of religion or expression of Christianity that's occurred since that time in 1517. So there's a massive twisting and changing taking place. So way to go, Hall Wesleyan Church, that your leadership has come together under the leadership of your pastor, and you decided to take a hard look at what does it take to maintain the cutting edge viability of ministry, so that Hall Wesleyan is not simply a picture on somebody's wall 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, but it's still a viable church fellowship meeting the needs of the surrounding community. I'm going to pray over you in the name of Jesus. I pray blessing upon your self-analysis, your study. I pray God give you unusual insight into what you're to do during these days. I remain a fan of Hall Wesleyan Church and of your pastor David Swisher, who I've known for a long, long time, along with his wonderful bride, talented bride, known them forever. So I pray blessings upon you during this season. Thank you for letting me share with you these few moments.